In April 1953, the world learned the secret of life. Two young scientists, James Watson and Francis Crick, unveiled the double helix of DNA, the discovery that would transform medicine, genetics, and our understanding of who we are. They won the Nobel Prize. Their names became legend, but the image that cracked the code wasn't theirs. This is photograph 51, taken in a cramped London laboratory in 1952 by a brilliant, uncompromising woman named Rosalind Franklin. Without her X-ray vision, the double helix might never have been built. Yet her name was erased from the story, her data taken without permission, her credit stolen. This is the untold story of Rosalind Franklin, the stolen discovery of DNA. Rosalind Elsie Franklin was born on July 25, 1920, into a prominent Jewish family in Notting Hill, London. From childhood, she was fiercely intelligent, top of her class in maths and science at St. Paul's Girls' School, one of the few places that actually taught physics to girls. In 1938, she won a scholarship to Newnham College, Cambridge. She studied chemistry, graduated with honours, and earned her PhD in 1945 for groundbreaking work on the structure of coal, research that helped Britain's wartime fuel efforts. Her French colleagues called her the English Rose. She called her work beautiful. By 1951, at age 31, she was one of the world's leading experts in the technique. King's College London came calling. They needed someone to solve the structure of DNA. The molecule everyone knew carried life's instructions, but no one could see. Rosalind Franklin stepped into the biophysics unit and into history. The atmosphere at King's was complicated. Maurice Wilkins had already been working on DNA fibers. But when Rosalind arrived, the lab director John Randall wrote her a letter implying she would lead the X-ray work. Wilkins believed she was his assistant. She believed she was in charge. Rosalind didn't do small talk. She was direct, brilliant, and didn't suffer fools. Wilkins found her intimidating. She found the all-male common room and separate women's dining rules archaic. But she got to work. She perfected a humidity-controlled camera. And she discovered something astonishing. DNA had two forms. The dry A form, sharp, crystalline. And the wet B form. Longer, more like the DNA inside living cells. She presented her early findings in November 1951. A young American visitor named James Watson sat in the audience. He barely understood the maths, but he remembered the confidence in her voice. On Friday, May 2, 1952, Rosalind Franklin and her PhD student Raymond Gosling loaded a pure fiber of the wet B-form DNA into the camera. They exposed it to X-rays for 62 long hours. On Tuesday, May 6th, they developed the plate, number 51 in the series. The image was breathtaking, a perfect black X slashed across the film, the unmistakable signature of a helix. The missing spots told her the phosphates were on the outside. Rosalind Franklin had captured the clearest evidence yet that DNA was a spiral molecule. She knew it was revolutionary, but she was a crystallographer first. She refused to guess. She wanted more data. She put photo 51 aside and kept measuring the sharper A form. She had no idea how little time she had left. January 1953, Rosalind was preparing to leave King's for Birkbeck College. Wilkins secretly shared photo 51 with Watson, fueling the race for the double helix. Wilkins, now taking over the DNA work, showed a copy of photo 51 to his friend James Watson. Franklin had no idea. Watson later wrote, "The instant I saw the photograph, my mouth fell open and my pulse began to race. In one glance, he knew DNA was a helix." Weeks later, Francis Crick's boss, Max Perutz, on the Medical Research Council, quietly passed Watson and Crick Rosalind's confidential progress report. It contained her precise measurements, the 34 Armstrong repeat, the two-chain structure, phosphates out, bases in. Armed with Rosalind's data, Watson and Crick returned to their model building. On February 28, 1953, they clicked the final pieces together and ran to the Eagle pub shouting, "We found the secret of life!" On April 25, 1953, Nature magazine published 3 papers side by side. Watson and Crick's double helix model, Wilkins' supporting data, and Franklin and Gosling's paper, the one with photo 51. It looked like confirmation. It was actually the foundation. Rosalind read the Watson Crick paper and reportedly said with a wry smile, "It's very pretty, but how are they going to prove it?" She never publicly complained. She moved on to viruses at Birkbeck and produced more brilliant work on tobacco mosaic virus and polio. But the credit had already been claimed. In 1956, while visiting America, Rosalind felt a pain in her abdomen, ovarian cancer. She fought it with the same determination she brought to science, continuing to publish, supervise students, even building a model for the Brussels World Fair while undergoing treatment. On April 16, 1958, Rosalind Franklin died at just 37 years old, 4 years too early for the 1962 Nobel Prize awarded to Watson, Crick, and Wilkins. Nobels are never given posthumously. In his best-selling book, The Double Helix, Watson later portrayed her as difficult, unfeminine, and uncooperative, calling her Rosie in a way that made her sound like a villain. He admitted seeing her photo without permission. He admitted her data was crucial, but the damage was done. For decades, school textbooks barely mentioned her name. Today, the truth is finally being told. Historians now call her data the decisive clue. Her colleague Aaron Klug, who won his own Nobel, said her measurements made the model possible. Francis Crick later admitted they had been patronizing toward her. Buildings, awards, even a Mars rover now carry Rosalind Franklin's name. She proved that genius doesn't need permission to shine. So the next time you hear Watson and Crick discovered DNA, remember the woman who actually saw it first. The woman whose photograph unlocked the secret of life, and whose discovery was stolen from history. Rosalind Franklin didn't just help discover DNA. She was the discovery. Without her, there is no double helix. Subscribe for more untold stories of science.